The goal here, Wolf, was never and was not designed to prevent them from engaging in bad behavior in the region. They're doing that today. The goal is to ensure that they don't have a nuclear weapon, and therefore, when they are engaging in that bad behavior, that much more dangerous.
No, I just want to be precise. So there's really, once the money starts flowing in, it's their money correctly. As I pointed out, as you pointed out, it's their money. They can do with it whatever they want. If they want to give $1 billion in weapons to Bashar al-Assad or $1 billion to Houthi rebels in Yemen.
No, they can't do that, Wolf, because they'll still be under an arms embargo that would prevent them from sending weapons anywhere.
Well, what if they're not sending weapons? What if they're just sending money?
Well, they may be able to send money.
All right, very sad. And folks, nothing to laugh at today. Of course, the death of the 4 Marines at the naval facility in Chattanooga, the recruiting facility, still being investigated as a possible act of terror. Joining us now is Elliott Abrams, Senior Fellow of the Council on Foreign Relations, former Deputy National Security Advisor, and check out, by the way, CFR.org. Elliott, welcome back. Always great to talk to you. And you know what Wolf was referring there to Susan Rice was Iran's support of terror around the world, and she basically admitted there that once they get that money, they could do whatever they want with it, including sending it to Hezbollah or anybody else.
Yeah, but come on, it's only $140 billion. What are you getting excited about?
So
it's extraordinary, isn't it?
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, it's amazing. I mean, if you just think about it, our government admits this is the largest supporter of terrorism in the world. And we're about to give them $140 billion. I mean, right there, it's astonishing.
It is astonishing, and it's astonishing that let me ask you about the hostage situation or the prisoners, and the question that was asked of the president yesterday. But let's forget how that question went and how the answer went. Let's just talk about the facts. You've served in your capacity, certainly. Would it be normal, more normal, if that's a word, if that's a phrase, procedure, to go into negotiations with a country like Iran and say, before we go anywhere, or before we get to this step, you're going to release our prisoners as a goodwill gesture, or we're not going any further?
It would, and even the Obama administration made that a precondition when it came to Cuba. They had to let go this American Alan Gross. Of course, we traded for him. We gave him some Cuban spies. But they understood he's got to get out. In the case of Iran, we just didn't make any demands at all. In the last days, they came up with this demand for getting out from under the arms embargo, and we caved because the president, I think, was so desperate to get a deal. But this notion that, we couldn't raise the hostages, that would have been a terrible thing, I think it's ridiculous. And I think that had we insisted on it, they'd be out.
I agree with you. It probably would be that simple, but I don't think he has it in him. Let's talk about Israel's response, and that this agreement is a colossal mistake and doesn't affect Israel in the fact that they don't have to respect this agreement. It doesn't apply to them. Do you believe that Israel will act covertly and or through military means to make sure Iran does not develop a nuclear weapon?
Yeah, and I think first, you're absolutely right in how you're asking and explaining this, using the word Israel, not Netanyahu, because this isn't about Netanyahu. The leader of the left-wing Labor Party, the opposition in Israel, has exactly the same view of this Iran deal. Left, right, center, wall to wall in Israel. It isn't a Netanyahu thing. We've basically, by signing this deal, said, we're not going to do any intelligence activities, we're not going to do any subversion, we're going to just leave it alone. We now have a deal. The Israelis, as they say, are not signing up to this deal. I assume that they will continue to do whatever they can to screw up the Iranian nuclear program. Now, whether they'll go to the extent of doing a military strike, I don't think they're going to do it this week, but for them, I really think all options are really on the table.
Yeah, and do you see, as we look at the politics of this, as we get into the presidential season, do you see, Hillary has kind of walked a fine line here. She kind of agrees with the concept, but she has to see the details. And let me ask you this, more importantly, in 30 seconds. Are you surprised that the Congress gave away their right to just an up or down vote in the Senate to consider this as a treaty and say no, and now it has to get a presidential, override a presidential veto?
No, I guess it was a compromise the Republican leadership thought they couldn't get away from. I think it's very important that they vote and that they vote against this because it'll really send a message. And, you know, it'll be important for Arabs and Israelis to know that if there is a Republican president, he can refer back to what the Republican Congress did and not be bound by this deal, even if there is a veto.
Right. Elliott, great to talk to you, sir. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
All right, folks. Give Me 5 is next, but first, Newsmax wants to send one lucky couple on a 7-day Silver Sea cruise to the Caribbean this winter. Could be Elliott and a person of his choosing. The cruise aboard the Silver Wind is the trip of a lifetime, but you need to enter. Visit newsmax.com/sweepstakes. That's newsmax.com/sweepstakes. We're coming right back.